Good morning, great souls. So good to be with you. Happy Thanksgiving. It is true joy to come together today and for James and I and to be with you. So many different things have stood out to me as I've been preparing for today and reflecting on what to share and tuning into different talks and writings of Swamiji about gratitude and also thinking of Thanksgivings past, different talks that have been there. There was an article in Crystal Clarity magazine that Swami wrote on gratitude, and he was pointing out different things. And I noticed, not surprisingly, each thing I read, each thing I tuned into, there was this underlying theme, which is in our affirmation today, which is learning how to live in God. That the more attuned our consciousness is to the love and joy of God's presence within, gratitude becomes a natural outpouring of the heart. It's just there for us. There's a deep sense of appreciation for all that is, which Swamiji embodied. And I was reminded of a story that Kirtani shared with some of us who were on pilgrimage in Assisi, and she was talking about Swami's capacity to greet life with a sense of giving thanks to the giver behind all gifts. And he walked through, in terms of physical karma, which it's been said, and certainly I can believe this to be true, that, he didn't broadcast this, but that he took on the karma of others and was working that out. And so he went through a lot of challenging physical conditions that it's difficult to be grateful for. It's difficult to have appreciation. And Kirtani told the story that one morning in Assisi at his house, she was there in the morning helping him. And I don't know if it was a particularly difficult morning, but she was kind of impacted in a deep way of just, why does he have to go through this difficulty, this suffering? And so spontaneously, she just started to say it. He was at the table, and she said, Swamiji, why? And he knew exactly where she was going. And he turned and said, stop. Right? Don't say it. And she told us, like it took her back. And he said, what Divine Mother sends, I welcome. And there was period, right? Like moving on. And so she thought, okay, I stand corrected. But she just said, she said, he said that for me. That was for my consciousness. Don't let your consciousness go there. Don't let it drop. Don't get into this idea that difficulty is sad. Now, that doesn't mean be cold about, or what we might call inhuman about difficulties and challenges. It's just not that. But there's a particular place she was going, a melancholy sadness about the condition of his physical health that he wasn't living in. He wasn't living in that. He was living in the difficulty of the physical health. He never denied that. But he was teaching her, and then in her sharing the story, she was teaching us, what does it mean to be able to welcome whatever comes, to live in such a way that you're seeing God in everything. Right? God is in everything. So I was reminded this morning thinking about seva and service and giving, and it's such a path. It's central to the path of Ananda yoga to be practicing seva, which is serving God through serving others. In the yoga studio, we used to have a little article that interviewed both Chidambar and Stephen Manis, and periodically I would just stop and reread it, as it was so filled with joy. They were just sharing their experiences of what happens when we open our hearts in that way and give of ourselves, whatever it is we have to give. And this time of year, and especially as the holidays come, there's so many seva opportunities. I'll see the notes going out, and then people start jumping in to help with food and clean up and set up. And the thing I feel and see the most is joy. That is, so all the food for those staying today, filled with joy. You can be certain of that. So the other thing, just in pondering of So 3 different talks have also been in my consciousness that we've had recently. Kesava's, all 3 Sunday services. So Kesava's Sunday service, Aryavan's Sunday service, and Sai Ganesh's Sunday service. And, what about them? So in Kesava's, what has been standing out to me, beautiful, personal stories of accepting life challenges and recognizing the gift in it, recognizing that, and he told the story of being a young boy, and he'd reached a point with his family and backpacking journey where now it's time to carry a heavier load. And it felt like too much for him. And so very sweetly, he just talked about the struggle of it and encountering there's no way out of this. His dad at one point said, you have to get up this mountain and you have to do it. Like, I'm not going to take the pack away. And the life lesson of how that's a blessing when, God, will you remove this? No, I'm not going to remove this, because the strength you'll gain from the experience, the empowerment that will come, the way it will serve you in your journey of freedom, I want you to have that. The Swami talks about in gratitude, there's this learning how to have definitely a positive attitude and be appreciative of the beauty and the easeful things. That's one of the songs we just sang. It's one of my favorite. The whole song is filled with all the things that would be easy to be grateful for. The question can be, am I? But the rainbow and the sun and the flowers and the grassy fields and, just so many things. So part of the practice of gratitude is focusing on the good and the blessings that are easy to see in our life, and take time to really celebrate them. Let your heart be filled with gladness for all the good that is here, but continue, right? So don't let it be limited to that. That if that's all I'm grateful for, I've missed the bigger picture here, which in Aryavan's talk, he gave this wonderful explanation of the power of understanding the teaching of karma, that ultimately it gives us a context for our journey. So then I'm able to recognize this life as a chapter of a much bigger story. And I don't remember the previous story, which makes it harder. Like if I could remember it, what Master Yogananda said is that part of the reason we don't remember is there's a number of things, but it'd be confusing. Too easy to keep looking backwards then. But also, we're meant to be in this life. This is the life we're meant to be in, and leading these, having these experiences and learning from them. And so Aryavan was just talking about the more that we're able to embrace that teaching and see that our life isn't meaningless. It's not a series of random experiences. Like, why am I learning this lesson? Why am I faced with this challenge? But if there's a deeper sense of trust, there's a purpose to this, right? And I'm being given an opportunity here. What Swami said is the more that we can attune our consciousness to God's presence within, which is what he was showing Kirtani in her story, the easier it will be to embrace this moment, this life, this chapter, what's unfolding. So I was, just again reflecting on challenges, and it came to mind, it's an experience I had. I was very young. I think I was 4, could have been 5, but I'm going to guess I was 4. And had training wheels I'd been riding. And I had an older brother who observed me one day. I don't know what I was doing, maybe riding without my hands or something. And he came up, he said, "You don't need training wheels anymore." I was so shocked. I loved training wheels. I said, "I don't?" And he said, No, you don't need them. We're going to take them off. And I didn't want it. I didn't like it. Like, why? Why do we have to take them? And he kept saying to me, he said, "It's not good for you to ride with training wheels if you don't need them." That made no sense to me, right? I said, "But I can do tricks." He goes, "Yeah, that's why you're not going to use them, because you can do tricks." I didn't understand it, and I didn't like it, but he was very firm about it. "No, tomorrow, whatever, we're taking the wheels off." He said, "I'll hold your bike, I'll run with you, but you need to grow," is what he was telling me. You need to grow. You're ready to grow, you need to grow. I would have spent a lot more time in training wheels. I didn't feel I needed it. But anyways, there's the day it comes. I'm nervous. I'm uncomfortable. He He couldn't convince me that I needed to do it. I just had to accept he was an older brother, right? He was bigger, older. He was set down the law. So he's running behind me, pedal, pedal, pedal. I'm pedaling away, pedaling away. And at some point, I asked him a question, and I heard his voice way behind me. I was like, what? I turned back. He was way behind me. And then he said, look ahead, right? So I didn't crash. And okay, I stop. I don't even remember how I stopped. He runs up and he said, okay, very good. Now you don't need me. I don't need you. No, you don't need me. And so ride, right? And I rode a few other times. And it wasn't entirely stable. It wasn't completely comfortable. But sure enough, and it wasn't long before I came to understand, oh, okay, this is better. And that's really what he was saying for me, is it won't serve you to stay back, even though it's comfortable. And what I've seen in life's journey is that quite often the next test, the next lesson, the next class, I don't feel entirely ready for. I feel like I kind of like to master where I am. I wouldn't say and that's what I was trying to tell him. Well, I haven't mastered training wheels. He's like, the point is not to master training wheels. The point is to keep growing. So, it's just a little story, a sweet story, but I watch that in myself. I can still see that little inner dialogue with God. Are you sure that this is my next step, the next thing for me to do? I am sure. Swami said, if you're not sure what your dharma is, look in front of you. What is it that's here? That's a good way to know. What is that? So then I was reflecting on Sai Ganesh's beautiful talk about, his was, prayer, is a call to, I forget now, but it's prayer and faith. I forget the exact title of it. But what he was saying is that he told, this very inspiring story, and a stunning one to me, of how he encountered, because he doesn't know how to swim. In this story, he didn't know how to swim. He's in the ocean. He's got a life jacket. He's snorkeling. And he felt well prepared. He wasn't concerned at all. But in the water, something, what's it called? Our nervous system and the limbic system, the reptilian brain instincts kicked in, and he could not convince his system he wasn't going to drown, right? It kicks in. But I love how he tied that together with prayer and faith, that we know the teachings. He said, all of us here in this room, we likely know these teachings. We understand anything that comes to us, there's a purpose and meaning in it. And we want to be filled with faith. We want to have calm confidence. He told the story that Yogananda shared of, taking the boys across the waterfall in Autobiography and calling out to the boys, do you believe? We do. And then with him and the boys, he had the power, the divine power, to guide them safely. But if we lack that, which can happen, we do have to be careful about the things we take on. Keshava talked about that too, towards the end of his talk, was saying, now, if the hill is too big and you're not up to the challenge, okay, then Master said back away from it, But this idea that what I took away a lot from Sai Ganesh's talk was a sense of compassion and mercy for the journey, that it's understandable that we can have fear, even though we know better. Right? And that was his whole experience. The instructor's trying to say to him, relax, you can't drown. You have a life jacket on. Right? God's our life jacket. We can't fail. These teachings tell us that our destiny, everyone's destiny, is freedom. We are all going to make it to the top of the hill, no matter how heavy the pack, no matter how difficult it's going. Right? We're all going to get there. And we have tremendous grace fueling us in the journey. So there's I don't hear it often, but every once in a while I'll hear it. It's the teaching of Yogananda's that in terms of that grace fueling us, God is giving us 50% of what we need. So of the 100% required to get there, 50% constantly flowing to us. Gurus, 25%. So we, 75% of what we need, we have already. The 25% feels like 100 on our part. It does feel like it. But to know and to practice knowing, we have everything I need. I have everything I need to make it, to let go of the training wheels, to take on the next challenge, and be unafraid. Be unafraid, because just like my brother holding my bike, God's holding our bike, right? Running along with us, and then letting go in the sense of use your strength, use your skills, use your ability, reach, challenge yourself. Yogananda said, bite, with an apple, take a bigger bite. Take a big bite and chew it. So the balancing act of compassion for the self, okay, I'm afraid, but I can't help that I am, right? So it doesn't serve to be angry at ourselves about it, for me to be frustrated with myself, just to recognize this is hard. This is challenging. Some part of me doesn't quite believe. I'm conscious mind believe, but some part of me doesn't. And the thread from Sai Ganesha's for me was perseverance. That the day will come when we will have all the confidence that we need. And if fear kicks in, to accept it and then, keep practicing. Don't give up. Believe that eventually, and this is from Lahiri, Banat, Banjai, right? Like doing, done, one day done. So all of these different things have been in my mind in terms of, how to do it. And I guess I'll share just a little bit about just the personal journey of experience with seva that's been in my consciousness. Some of you know, I've talked about in my early 20s, I felt called to serve the poor, and I became a lay missionary. And that inner calling was in response to me praying daily to God to help me be happy. I was just asking God to help me be happy, and then this answer started to come. With joy, it would come, this message, serve the poor. Which didn't sound like a path to be happy to me. It just didn't. I mean, I could see the nobility of it, but I couldn't see it as a path to happiness. And so eventually my journey unfolds, and I join an organization, a Catholic organization, beautiful one, run by the Claretians, and they're following St. Anthony Claret, which is serve the poorest of the poor with joy, right? So the love of Christ impels us with St. Anthony's theme. And part of the teaching, which reminds me so much of our life, my life in Ananda, is this central feature of joy in service, which comes from loving God. That's the only way you can do it. You cannot possibly walk through challenges joyfully without being centered in joy, the joy of God. So then the practice is, how do I cultivate it? How do I cultivate it? And what I learned at the beginning of my lay missionary training is that go with a sense of sharing and serving with. Don't go with an attitude of I'm bringing something, because the truth is your experience, likely, if it goes well for you, you'll leave with more than you give. Whatever you give, right, you'll leave with more of that. So I was in the inner city, one of the places I served in St. Louis, and I came from Northern California and a suburban community. I wasn't used to the city. So one day I was full of fear one day, and I thought to myself, well, you're probably exaggerating this, right? So I asked some of the other lay missionaries who'd been there longer, has anyone ever been hurt doing this? Yes. Really? Yes, one of the nuns, really hurt. And it just stunned me for a minute, and they moved on. Like, okay, so really they were saying, yeah, it's very dangerous where we are. It's very dangerous, yeah. The one thing we have, which is a big thing, is working for the church in the community that's pretty respected. It's sometimes attacked, but mostly respected in the community. So, you're part of the church. Likely people will leave you alone. But I remember walking away and going, okay, well, I can't rely on that. I was hoping to convince my conscious mind, it's not that dangerous, relax. No, it's dangerous. So just a sweet experience of exchange with that. is one of the things we used to do, we'd rotate turns getting groceries. We lived in the rectory, and then we'd get groceries for a big group. And we usually went in twos, but this day I went by myself. I don't know why. I went to the store, I got all the groceries. Coming home, the volunteer cars were very cheap cars. That's what the church could afford. So anyways, I'm driving and the car dies. And no cell phones, none of that, right? And I go, okay. It just like I just watched it go, kick, kick. Yep, it died. So I just pulled over, and I was about 2 blocks from the church. And I just sat there, and I thought, okay, God. And I remember saying that, okay, God, now what do I do? Because it wasn't safe to walk. Those 2 blocks, I knew it wasn't. And I knew it wasn't safe to be in the car either. But there I was with all the groceries. What am I going to do? And I hear this voice, this man behind me yelling at me, you can't stay there. Right? And I turn around, and he's in the car behind me. You shouldn't be here. I said, I know. He's like, well, what are you doing? I said, my car died. And I swear I could just feel him like, oh. He goes, well, what are you doing? Right? And I said, I work for the church. Right? And he knew the church was 2 blocks up. He goes, all right, I'll push you. I go, really? And he had the most beautiful Cadillac. I just felt like it wasn't new, but it was beautiful. And I had the most beat up car. And he just got it. He slowly eased up. He goes, take your foot off the brake, put it in neutral, steer. And he said to me, before he started, he goes, the Lord's looking out for you. I was like, I know it, right? And he just pushed me the whole way, pushed me right up 2 blocks, and pushed me right in. And then he drove on and waved. And I just thought, oh my gosh. And it was and still is for me, such an example of the beauty of you will receive so much more, right? And part of the vulnerability of being willing to give your all and how much comes back to you. And it's one small example, but it's just one of those that stays with me. In my journey of a moment of God coming through another person, right? Through his generosity. And I felt like he so reluctantly helped me. But there was no way he was going to leave me on the side of the road, right? There's no way he was going to leave me there. It was dangerous, and he was going to do what he needed to do. And I could imagine him saying, Lord, why'd you have me come at this moment, right? So, the idea of Swami saying in our affirmation, all of our tools, all of our practices, they help us learn how to have an attitude of appreciation first, have an attitude of gratitude first, and then begin by understanding that everything that comes to us is coming from God. Practice that teaching, the affirmation of that teaching, that any challenge, any difficult comes with an opportunity and all the grace we need to meet that challenge. And we don't do it alone. We have a community to help us. And if that's not true for you, find a community to help you. Find friends that help you walk the walk of awakening. And as Keshava was saying at the end of his talk, as that starts to sink in, what Yogananda called our mental citizens get on board. They start to get on board. They're like, I'm up for it. Take off the training wheels. I'm ready for the next. And that is such a joyful thing to come to. And if I'm not there, my friend is. Right? So sometimes I borrow their confidence. I borrow their willingness to climb the hill. Okay, let me just stand close to you because you've got the attitude that I want. And the deepest way to get there is to cultivate inner communion. Cultivate that relationship with God. And that then flowers into appreciation and gratitude. It comes through us. And Swami said that when we're living there, we don't even need to say thank you. It's a lovely thing, but we express thank you. It's our being. It just comes through us. So I leave you with that today. And as James said, we'll have a gratitude practice for each of you.